Hi, welcome to Greenlight. I'm your host, Jennifer Edwards, the Director of Marketing at Landis+Gyr. We have a special guest joining us today. Curtis Wynn is with us. He's the CEO of Roanoke Electric Cooperative in North Carolina. And he's sitting down with our very own Jim Richardson, VP of Distribution and Channel Sales. So Curtis brings a wealth of knowledge from the cooperative perspective. He's also served as the president of the NRECA. And together they're going to sit down and really talk about what that cooperative utility of the future looks like, talking through grid modernization from a public power perspective. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Jim and Curtis.
Great, thank you, Jennifer. So happy and proud to be able to have Curtis on the line with us today. His wealth of experience is really going to bring a great mix of information here, and to draw upon his experiences is something I'm really looking forward to today. Thank you, Curtis.
Thanks, Jim. Glad to be with you today.
Great. So we'll just kick it right off. We hear a lot of talk about smart cities and cities of the future with things like smart street lights, the electrification of the vehicles come to mind. But let's talk about smart communities, and specifically smaller, often more rural communities. What does the cooperative utility of the future look like to you?
Yeah, Jim, we're already seeing signs of what I would call, as you described, the cooperative of the future in the cooperative space. The shift from central station generation and the one-way flow of power is already upon us. We're here. Rural cooperatives are already adopting advanced technologies to run our utilities as we rapidly move to distributed forms of power generation, such as utility scale and solar and wind generation. All of this combined with large-scale battery technology. So the electrons are being generated closer to where they're being used. And in many aspects, I think we've come full circle with that. So in addition to that, we're seeing advanced metering infrastructure pop up in a lot of different directions, and AMI and supervisory control and data acquisitions, what we know as SCADA. These two technologies are joining forces and becoming the nerve center of our operations in many cases. Somewhat new to this rapid movement for electric cooperatives and other utilities is this shift of where the line of demarcation is. What we're seeing is that line of demarcation moving further into the homes and the businesses to which we serve electricity. Often we refer to this as behind the meter integration, and through this we're engaging with our member owners to support our own efforts to run more efficient utilities and to help them save money while we're reducing our costs, as well as produce the reduction of carbon emissions. By asking our member owners to allow us to control those appliances in their homes and their businesses, such as the smart thermostats we're seeing, the water heater controls, and increasingly electric vehicle charging stations, we're being able to do that. Now, what I think can't be missed in this conversation about the utility of the future are the new demands that we're placing on our employees, such as requiring them to learn more about information technology and to blend this IT knowledge into our operations. We often hear words like OT, operations technology, because of this shift that we're seeing. Many of us are even revamping what we consider the skill sets that we're seeking to staff our utilities. And last and certainly not least, in this area of the cooperative of the future, what we're finding is that data is more available, and it is driving many of the decisions that we have to make, and giving us and our member owners more options and more answers to the utility's needs and the members' desires in terms of how we operate. So I see all of this coming together right now as we speak in terms of what the utility of the future looks like.
That's great. I'm going to jump in on one thing you said about the members. The beauty about the cooperative space is you are member owned, and I'm sure you're getting more and more input from your members as they demand more and more information. How are they helping you in those grid modernization efforts? For example, is there a push from your members to provide them more information on how they consume electricity?
Absolutely, Jim. Yes, member engagement and member expectations, I believe, are key drivers of this whole concept of grid modernization. Members and customers are demanding what I consider the 3 C's. One is convenience, and then they want comfort, and most importantly, they want to be in control. And it is our job, in my opinion, as utilities, to give them all of these, but to do it in a variety of different ways. I mentioned data earlier, and we have a lot of it. Members are quite inquisitive, and some want more data, but others simply want more answers. Our team members at the cooperative there at Roanoke, now we have data that we're using to provide our members with more answers about things like, why is my bill what it is? Whether or not time of use billing is a good fit for certain member owners. And can we determine at the cooperative when the current is being diverted or stolen in terms of how we use that data as a co-op? We can better determine which members are out of power now when and we can also anticipate when that power will be restored and let the members know this information before they even ask us for it. Or perhaps we can know when our members purchased that new electric vehicle and they've started charging that vehicle during the peak hours. And we can also pinpoint the root causes of line loss and mitigate the problem using data that we're getting now. But most importantly, I think we can engage our members to more efficiently utilize our electrical systems and to get more mileage out of the systems that we have. So from my perspective, these are just a handful of things that the data is allowing us to do in terms of engaging with our member owners.
That's great. That's great. Curtis, I know that North Carolina is the #2 state right behind California in solar PV. And I want to talk a little bit about solar and the integration of both solar and electric vehicles. As a homeowner who's got rooftop solar and an EV in my garage, I understand the issues that are facing my utility. How are you handling that increased demand for both EVs and PV on your system?
All right, so let me switch it up on you, Jim. I'll start with PV.
Okay.
So I think education is really the key. There's a tremendous amount of bad education going around right now by folks that are selling these PV solutions. So I think as a utility, we've got to remain that trusted energy solutions provider by providing our members with education. Identifying where the PV, the solar facilities are located is also another concern that I have. Just recently, my team let me know that we've just identified about 7 situations where solar has been introduced into our system, and we weren't even notified or been given the opportunity to put an agreement in place. And we did that via the data that we were getting back from our AMI system. So what we've been able to do now is really start cleaning this up and getting these interconnections agreements where they should be. So that's what I see happening with solar. Now, on the EV side, I think this is what I would consider yet another distinction between the cities who are customers of yours and the electric cooperatives. Now, while the cities might be working to find ways to deal with the demand, at least at our co-op, we're trying to figure out how to increase the demand and to get more people to adopt EVs as their choice of transportation. Well, obviously, the reason we want to do this is because we're in a system that is not growing, and this is a huge opportunity for us to increase load, but to do it in the right way. And when I say do it in the right way, I want to just share with you what we've done and how we've implemented a pilot electric vehicle subscription rate at our co-op, which was really designed to both educate our members about the cost advantage and the advantages of owning and operating in an EV, and also helping our system in its growth trajectory. So what we do here is this, we install these in-home charging stations. Currently, we're doing that during the pilot at no cost to the member owners. And then they have 3 flat monthly subscription options ranging from $50 a month to $35 to $25. And each of those will give a fixed number of kilowatt hour consumption that we're charging based on their specific needs. And then with our newly installed AMI system, we're also able to segregate that appliance, that charging station from the rest of the house and put a rate on just the charging station. And with the goal of all of this is to make EVs more prevalent and accessible to all of our member owners. Now, what will happen post-pilot with this program is that we will likely shift to what we established as a pay-as-you-save tariff-based on-bill investment program through which the co-op can recoup that upfront investment that we're making into the home with that charging station through the savings that we'll create for the member owner and that new EV owner once they enjoy those additional savings. So those are some of the things we're doing with EVs and with the solar development.
Oh, that's great. Great. So you've been with Roanoke now for 24 years, and you're really going on your second deployment. Along the way, you've been seen as the technology leader with a consistent focus on the future. How do you keep an eye on the future? What's next? You don't know what you don't know, but how do you truly get that visionary look of what's down the road?
I think it just really boils down to constant engagement with our member owners and also with the community at large. And these are keys to understanding what their needs are and what do they want. Sometimes we can anticipate this, but it's really hard to do without some level of engagement and to respond in a cost-effective and responsible manner. We've got some neat tools as co-ops. One I'll mention is the Touchstone Energy Engagement surveys that we do that provide us answers to critical questions that you definitely want to make sure you answer before you start making investments into technology to make sure it's something that the members both want and that they need. And also, we can never overlook the tremendous power that we have with our cooperative network and the knowledge we receive through things like conferences I know your organization attends with co-ops. Also, the interaction with our network partners and vendors who are always there with us to provide us answers and solutions as we need them. But most importantly, I think is that constant flow of information that electric cooperatives can spend or can give each other. Leaders exchanging information one with another about the relative or respective experiences that we each have as we move towards this cooperative of the future. Because we're all in different places. We can move so quickly as utilities, as electric cooperatives, because we're locally driven. We have the autonomy that we need to make decisions, and especially those of us who operate in states that are not regulated or governed by a state utilities commission. So those are some of the things that I think make the electric cooperatives unique, as well as the ability to move quickly and pivot as needed in this new environment that we're in.
That's a great point. That's a very good point. I want to shift a little bit about the extreme weather that seems to be increasing, whether it's the firestorms we're seeing out in the western part of the U.S., the hurricanes that are coming more frequently, and even the other wind and rain events that we've seen up and down the East Coast recently. How can grid modernization help those efforts? And tell me a little bit about what Roanoke is doing to help with that.
Yeah, it's really sad, and I don't know how many times I've heard here in the last few days that phrases such as the worst storm in over 500 years, or this is the worst that we've ever seen, and it's really happening more frequently than probably any of us can ever remember. So I'll just give you one example of how we are looking at this at Roanoke. Several months ago, we implemented a vehicle-to-grid battery pilot program. Batteries have been around, electric vehicles have been around a while, and now this newly developing concept of how do you take that parked battery, in our case, a parked Nissan Leaf and provide power back to our headquarters facility. We have the station sitting there, and it's actually working, and we're producing power that's offsetting the need, some of the demand that we have on the grid. Now, when you combine this with our backup generator and the 100 kW solar facility that we also have on our facility right there on our campus, we're set up perfectly for a small microgrid that will keep our utility operational for days off grid. Now, the goal here is to determine other use cases through which this concept might apply. You know, one that shows the most promise to us right now is working with local school systems to utilize school bus V2G technology once that becomes available. And then in that, you could save the school system money on fuel and maintenance costs. We can reduce the cooperative's wholesale power costs, and then potentially replicate this microgrid concept at the school, which could be a huge benefit for the entire community during extended outages that we're seeing happen more and more. Then beyond that, I think there are also potentially commercial businesses that could be a part of this use case strategy. The commercial businesses that have a vehicle fleet that that they could use to help with some of the resiliencies issues and needs as we move to more electric vehicles on the grid. So that's again some of the things that we're looking at on a moving forward basis of how we can better utilize the technologies that are coming our way.
Wow, what a great use of school bus and battery technology to work together in a community to help both sides. That's very innovative. I applaud you for that. There's been a lot of talk through the Biden administration about subsidies to help rural communities, not only from hardening that grid, but also bringing in new services and capabilities for those rural communities. What's your perspective on the impact of those cooperative communities?
Well, let's start on the broader scale. As you know, many of us as electric cooperatives, we provide input into our National Trade Association, NRECA, and from that input, we've established actually 3 major priorities. One is allowing us to reprice some of the RUS funding and financing that we've gotten over the years that can drastically reduce the carrying cost and the interest expense that we have for some of our capital investments that we've made. The second one is direct pay tax credits for some of the innovation, as we're talking about today, in the use of technology. Cooperatives have been blocked out of that ability to get those tax credits for years, and now with the expectation to harden the grid and to make us more resilient and to do all the things that our investor-owned counterparts are doing, we feel that benefit should be passed on to electric cooperatives as well. And then the last, of course, is voluntary financial incentive programs that can help us transition to lower carbon technologies, which is really a push for many for us to provide cleaner, more efficient power. Now, that's at the national scale. And then more on the local scale for co-ops like mine, many of my counterparts and I are looking at ways that we can get more broadband funding to help us support the need for robust communication systems out in our service territory in those very rural populations. And on top of that, just give a better quality of life for rural communities, for the rural communities that we serve. So I'd say those are the 4 major areas that we're looking at: broadband funding and the other 3 that are looked at from the NRECA's perspective.
Well, Curtis, thank you very much. Just as a closing question, what advice would you give other cooperative utilities as they look to the future?
Yeah, you know, I'm slow to give advice, but I don't want to give any specific advice, but I will continue to challenge leaders in this space to do as I did as I was the NRECA president. I put 3 major challenges in front of all of us, including myself. And one was to really recognize that Market forces and consumer expectations are going to drive change for co-ops and all utilities, and it's going to take the place of policy being a chief influencer of what we do. That's number one. The second is to go ahead and acknowledge that the future will demand sustainability and efficiency. Consumer expectations are going to really drive this, and they expect us to provide them with reliable electricity using renewable resources where feasible. Not only that, but disruptive forces are going to also require that we operate more efficiently. And then the last is that the future is going to require that we become more flexible as grid operators. You know, a smart grid is great, but it's really not enough to sustain our energy future. We're going to have to maintain a balance between the generation and load by utilizing more options. And then finally, as electric cooperatives, we've placed more of our efforts on the co-op side of the meter. Now, much of what is impacting our business is happening inside of the home or inside of the business, behind that meter. We've got to be progressive and place ourselves on the member consumer side of the meter to make sure we protect the decades of effort that we've put into becoming their trusted energy provider. And all of this, I believe, creates enormous opportunities for us as electric co-ops.
Oh, that's fantastic. Cooperatives have come a long way in the last 50 years, and I applaud you for your direction as far as both from a national level as well as your local cooperative. Again, Curtis, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
It's my pleasure, Jim. It's good talking with you.
Wow, what a great episode from Curtis and Jim. Thank you so very much. Curtis is just such a great natural leader, and that really comes through. He said something early on that resonated with me. I'm actually served by a cooperative myself, but the 3 C's of convenience, comfort, and control, those really resonated with me as an energy consumer. So friendly reminder, keep coming back here to tune in to our other Greenlight episodes. We'll be back here soon. So also engage with us on social media. You can find us on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. So we'll see you next time on Greenlight. Thank you very much.